The grandmother of a Stockton Springs 3-year-old who was killed in June of 2021 appearing in front of a judge today. Sherry Johnson is the maternal grandmother of Maddox Williams, who was killed after enduring significant abuse from his mother. Originally pleading not guilty in January of 22, Johnson took a plea deal in February of 2023, admitting she hindered the arrest of her daughter, Jessica Trefethen. In April, prosecutors filed a motion to revoke her probation, citing that Johnson violated her probation by not completing her mandated public service hours. Today, Johnson admitted she did not complete the service during the time of the filed motion.
It's unfortunate that it took this motion, to get you to the point where you followed through with your obligation to perform the community service. But once the motion was filed, you reacted in an appropriate way by going ahead and completing the public service, in fact, putting in a few more hours than was actually required.
Because of this, no sanctions were put on Johnson's probation. There will, however, be a permanent probation violation on her record. During the period between when the violation was filed to now, Judge Helm called it a stopped clock, where the time did not count toward probation served. Now that the motion is settled, Johnson will continue to serve her probation period.